Hey, welcome back to another application tutorial on Java Enterprise. In this section, we're going to work with the idea of Enterprise Java Beans. And let's take a look at the application that we're going to create. We're extending from the previous assignments, so you should see a login screen, which looks familiar. And when I click Submit, I get a list of products. Now you notice the list has some specific names in it. This says this is another product 1. Now let's look at where the data comes from to create this list. So I have a section over here, a package called Business. And you can see that I have 3 items in this. We have the thing called Order Business Service, and then another Order Business Service. So the idea is we're simulating to have 2 different business rules. Let's look in the one that says Another. In Another, we're going to create a list of items, a list of every row in our table. And so you can see the table here. It says this is another product 1. The alternative choice that we could run for this application is this business service. And let's see what that says. It's very similar. It just has the same kind of products with a different name. So this says this is product 1, and then the other says this is another product 1. Now, as you recall from the previous presentation, that business services can be customized for different uses. For instance, a testing environment versus a production environment. Now, how do we tell the app which one of these 2 business services we want to use? Well, we're going to look in here at beans.xml. It's in the lib under the web INF folder right beneath lib. So let's open up beans.xml. There's 2 ways to look at here. I can look at the source file and make a manual edit right into here, or let's look at the tree list. Now inside of beans.xml there's a branch called alternatives, and you can see that we are currently using the class called another business service. I can either remove that, or I'm going to choose edit in this case and delete this. Let's see if I press browse now. I'll delete the whole thing. And you can see I've got 2 choices. So either I can manually type it in, or it looks like I can select it here. So if I choose Order Business Service, and let's save the changes and rerun the app, we should see a different result on our main screen. So you can see now we have the list of products called this is product 1. So that's where we're going to program. Okay, on with the coding. I have open a project called Assignment 3A-EJB. It is simply a copy of the previous work from Assignment 2D. So currently, the app looks like this. We have a login screen, and inside the Java resources, we have a beans container and a controller. So there's no business operations yet, and that's what we're going to code right now. Okay, so the first thing I want to do in the source folder is create a new package, and this is for our business logic. So busyness is what I'm going to call the package. Inside of business, I'm going to create a new interface. So let's go to the interface option. It's going to be in the package called business, and let's call this orders business, and I'm going to attach the word interface after it. And let's click Finish. Alright, so we got the starting code for our business package. Now the first thing I want to do is tell it where this thing is going to be running. So I'm going to choose the decorator local, and then I'm going to import local, and let's take a look at why I chose that. So I'm looking here at some documentation. So I'm in the JavaEE tutorial page, and it says when you create a package, or when you create a class or an interface, is it going to be local or remote? And so it says here, one of the first decisions you have to make is whether the beans are remote, local, or web service. So I'm choosing local because my entire enterprise app runs on my laptop. It's one machine. However, if you're building an app in the corporation, it says here the advice is if you're not sure which type of access to use, choose remote access. Why? This decision gives you more flexibility. In the future, you can distribute your computers to accommodate the growing demands of your application. So there's a piece of advice for local or remote. We're specifically choosing local because we're using a classroom demonstration. Okay, back to coding. Now remember, in a coding interface, we don't actually implement the methods that we're going to use, but we do have to specify what they are going to be. So I'm going to create a test method here, and all this test method will probably do is put a message out on the screen. All right, now I have the interface created. Let's go to the business container and let's create a new class. So let's call our class Orders Business Service. So this is going to implement the interface that we created earlier called Orders Business Interface. Now you could either type that into the code, or we can choose now with this add button, and it says choose an interface. Let's see if we can do anything here with orders, and here it is, Order Business Interface. So let's choose that and then click Finish. So the interface option created this implements extension, and it tells us that we must use the test method in here, simply because that's what the Order Business Interface told us that we were going to do. So it said here, we're going to create a test method, and it created it for us with the override. So override means we have now fulfilled the contract and we will create test. So we need to put in a few decorators right here before line 3. The first decorator we're going to put in here is called stateless. And so that is a EJB setting that will not keep track of the state of our application. So check your imports, we got stateless there. Now the second decorator is local, and so that tells us that we're running on the same machine, and we're going to put in here the name of the interface that we're working on. So let's say Order Business, and it's looking for a class type. Looks like we need another import. And then the third and final is that we're going to put in the option for alternative. So putting alternative here means that there's going to be another option with another class that we can pick from. And we'll specify that in the XML file in just a few minutes. So let's implement the method for test. So I'll take out the comments here, and we're just going to print something that says this application is running. Okay, now you can see that I'm going to print out a message into the console log. Okay, so we're pretending that this is actually a complicated business process like we showed in the previous presentation. Now I want to make another business service, so let's take a copy and paste of our current project or our current class, and let's see if we can get another version running here. So you could call it Order Business Service 2. I'm going to be consistent with what I showed you in my video and call it another Order Business Service and click OK. Okay, so let's go look at the code for this new class that we just created. Let's double check to make sure that the class name matches the file name. It looks like it does. The implementation shows that it's using the interface, the same interface, so it's extending from here. And the out message here, the print out, should probably be different. We should say business order version number 2, let's call it. And that way we have a distinction between the two messages. So now we've created a fork in the road. We can use either this business service or the alternative, but where do we specify to the computer which one we want to run? We need to create a new file inside of this folder called webinf. So the new file that we're going to create is called beans.xml. Now I don't know if you'll have beans.xml as one of your menu choices. You can just create a file and then name it that. So beans.xml is what I'm going to choose. And the section that we're looking for is called alternatives. Now let's look at the source file here. So you can see it's a standard XML file. But we're going to use the tree as our editor for right now. So alternatives, and we're going to add an alternative. Now it says you're going to pick a class, so let's see if we can browse it. And you can see that it says one of the items here, Order Business Interface. Well, interface is close, but it's not exactly what I want. So let's see if we can choose Orders, and there it is. I've got Orders Business Service. That one comes up. Let's see if I can choose OK on that and Finish. Let's go look at the source code, and you can see Alternatives is a new tag in the XML file, and it lists the class name that I want to use for my business service. So far so good. Let's close and save, and then we can run this application and show the first business service is running. Well, obviously nothing's going to happen just because you create a class. You have to create an action in one of your controllers, for instance. Let's look in our form controller, and let's go include our interface for our business service now. So right here inside of the main class, we're going to have a import. With a EJB, we use the word inject. And then finally, we put in the name of our order business service. Let's see, inject, it looks to me like it needs to be imported. And now we're going to try to specify the name of this interface. So that way we can tell it we're going to use a business service here. So let's try order business. Okay, so we have the order business interface, and then we give it a name. So I'm going to, you could put S, I'm going to use services for mine. And so you can see that we need to have an import command from our interface object. So you can see now I'm using the interface here and not choosing another or order business service. So the interface gives me the choice of running one or the other at runtime. Now our controller is only really waiting for one option. So there's a button for the login screen called onSubmit. So onSubmit would be a great place to actually call the test operations. So let's do that like right in between here, and let's see if we can do this. Services dot, and is there a test command? There is. So services.test is a method, and this will print off just a message to the console. And so I'll put a comment here that says that this line here will print a message to the console to tell us which business service is currently selected in the beans.xml file as an alternative. And so we'll get two different messages based on which one is selected. So let's go and run the test form. It's our login form, and we'll see if we get anything down here in the console. So we should be expecting to see a message down here in the console log if I click submit. And sure enough, it says hello from test method, order business service version number 1. So we got version 1 running. Let's close this, and let's go back into our beans.xml, and we're going to change this line right here. So we can either type it in there, or we can go through the tree method here, and let's browse and get a new one. So let's see, delete from here, let's type a period, let's call it another, and there it is, another shows up. And this time we have ourselves another business service in the XML file. So let's close that and save the changes. And we'll run the same app, and we should get a different message now down here in the console. So let's see, we click submit, and now it says hello from test method, order business service number 2. And so we've got the controller telling us that we're running the test method, and the alternatives are now set here between one or the other. So we're going to stop right there, but the next part is to actually make these business services do something. So they're going to actually generate the orders instead of coming straight out of the orders object.